What is autism? What's up, D learners? It's your girl, Lady D, back here today to talk to you about what is autism. So this comes from a training that I do called Just Tell Me the Basics, What is Autism? I collaborated this information from Autism Speaks, Autism Society, WebMD, as well as the book that I showed you guys in a different video that comes from Mecklenburg County. It's a family resource guide for autism. So let's jump in. Autism is one of the most common developmental disabilities in the world, affecting approximately 1 in 88 children. And I think that this is an old document because the last I saw was 1 in 94, and it's probably even more than that now. Its prevalence rate makes it the second most common developmental disability. The vast majority of cases of autism have unknown cause. Autism presents with lifelong challenges and no known cure at this time. So please, if you hear someone say they cured autism, that's not accurate. You can treat autism to the point where your symptoms are not as visible. So some more information. Autism is a bio meaning biological, neurological, developmental disability that generally appears before the age of 3. Meaning if you are seeing some of the signs of autism, which I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're starting to research, and your child is not yet 3, you still want to get this information. If your child is over 3, there are different resources and different ways to get this information, but you want to find out. In a different video, I talk about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and the fact that some kids have autism, some kids have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and sometimes they can be comorbid, meaning children have both autism and ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We are focusing on autism today. So autism impacts the normal development of the brain. So you might hear the word neurotypical, meaning children or people whose neurological processes are typical, are exactly what everybody else's are like. So children with autism are thought to be atypical. So when you hear a person talking about neurotypical people, that means the majority of people who are not diagnosed with autism. There are some other developmental delays that may affect neurology as well. A lot of times brain scans will show activity in the same areas of the brain for many of these different developmental delays. So autism impacts social interaction. So if you notice, when I started the video off, I was trying to be dramatic, have a flat affect, not give you very much emotion, which clearly is very hard for me, so it didn't last very long. It affects communication skills. So for example, not just difficulty with social interactions, but that social communication piece, whether they can or cannot speak, the way they speak to some people may be different than what you typically hear people speaking to others, the way you hear people speaking to others. Cognitive functioning. Sometimes you'll hear that their cognitive functioning will be very high. For example, it is rumored that Einstein may have been autistic, and the DSM, what diagnoses autism, no longer separates autism into autism, Asperger's, things like that. But high functioning autism is typically those kids who are cognitively more like geniuses. And then you have the developmental delayed or intellectually delayed, like the old movie Rain Man. So there's other movies that kind of give examples of people with autism. I know there's one movie on Netflix that I absolutely thought was a very interesting movie. Cannot remember the name of it. It's actually a series. There is a movie I saw, I think it was called Adam. There's Rain Man. Some people joke that Napoleon Dynamite is based on an autistic type of a character. Now, these shows are not necessarily considered accurate. I'm just trying to give you examples of something that's out there in the media that you can kind of watch and get some ideas and start thinking, oh, okay, it gets your kind of mind going. So if you don't understand autism and you watch it in these media, kind of social media type of situations, it could be helpful. Now, some communication can be verbal for people with autism, some more nonverbal. It just depends. Individuals with autism often suffer from, like I said, comorbid medical conditions. These can include things like allergies, asthma, epilepsy, digestive disorders, persistent viral infections, feeding disorders, something called sensory integration dysfunction. So this is not in the DSM as a diagnosis yet. A lot of occupational therapists that work in pediatrics understand sensory. So the way I usually explain sensory is we have our 5 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling, tasting. Okay, and then so with our sense of sight, let's say for some people, bright lights in a classroom may be too overstimulating or overwhelming for them. So that's seeing. Hearing. For some people, loud noises, like how loud my voice gets, is overwhelming for them. And they may have to cover their ears, and it's too much. So seeing, hearing, smelling. Some people's sense of smell is triggered. Like for me, if I can't smell something horrible, I can't concentrate. I'm very sensitive to smell. I am neurotypical, but I'm just using myself as an example. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. Some children will have sensitivity to tastes and textures. And then the sense of feeling. So there's a sense of feeling, and it's broken down into two, I think if I'm saying it right, 2 things: proprioception and vestibular. So I am not going to unpack that in this conversation. Plus, I want to make sure to redo my research on it to make sure that I explain both of them correctly. But that's just pretty much feeling is, where is my body in space? So that means how close I am or how far away I am from something. And then the sense of motion, I'm moving, I'm going. So for some kids, they need to all over the place. And other kids, all that movement is too much. For some, they are very close to things like tight corners. And then for others, they like free open spaces. So that's your sensory system. And any of us can have issues with our sensory system. I think I talked about in my ADHD video how tags would bother me and I couldn't concentrate from certain tags and types of clothing. So that can be with anyone, but definitely children with autism, you will see that things like that, sleeping disorders, and even more. Autism, at the time that I researched this information, was maybe, I want to say, I can't remember when I wrote this training, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but it was 4 times more often diagnosed in boys than in girls. So I found that really, really interesting. Autism itself does not denote any particular life expectancy. And right now, there's no cure, there is treatment. And so I want to encourage everybody to get treatment if you think your child has any kind of developmental delay. So the first step would be, if your child is from 0 to 3, you want to look for your early intervention branch. Every state has early intervention. In Georgia, I feel like it's called Babies Can Wait or BabyNet. Georgia, South Carolina has it. In North Carolina, it's beearly.nc.gov. So any state that you live in, you want to look for early intervention in your state, and then the website should tell you how to find early intervention in your county. If you live in Mecklenburg County, you can contact Smart Start to get a copy of this guide. And I live in Charlotte, Mecklenburg area. So Mecklenburg County residents can do that. Another way you can get assistance is by looking into the Autism Society. So you definitely want to get connected with them. They could help you with your get resources, whatever state you live in, if you're having trouble finding the early intervention branch. Once a child is about 2 years, 9 months, then you should consider, do I want to go with early intervention? Because they're not going to be with me very long. Because 3 months after you start with them, guess what? They don't work with you anymore. It is because the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Part B, was written first for 3 to 5-year-olds. Well, it wasn't written first, but it was written for the 3 to 5-year-olds. Then Part C came along and was written for 0 to 3-year-olds. So 0 to 3-year-olds are early intervention. 3 to 5-year-olds go the same way, the kindergarten through 12th grade, and that is your LEA, Local Education Agency. If you live in Mecklenburg County School District, that's Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. If you live in North Carolina in Gaston County Schools. So whatever state you live in, find out who your local education agency is. If your child's 3 through 5, it's going to be a preschool section of the local education agency that evaluates them. If they're kindergarten through 12th grade, then you have the local education agency, whatever school they're going to. Make sure if you have questions about autism, you write a letter. Put this request in writing to your school system. Specifically ask what you want and sign it. Don't have sidebar conversations. Don't say, I think I might want to know. Ask specifically for what you want. Put it in writing so that you are more likely to get the evaluation you want. In a very heavy, rich city, for example, Charlotte, we have developmental pediatricians. There is another agency called Child and Family Development. There are psychologists that just work kind of freelance. We have this other great program. It is called TEACH, TEACCH. And you can Google teach. Let me see if I can find that information. So you would go to www.teachch.com. So that is a great resource for you as well. So let me give you a little bit more information about what autism is. So this is just kind of some more facts and statistics. I want to wait and go into some more signs and symptoms in a separate video because this is a lot to unpack for one video. So autism, affecting boys more than girls. About at the time of this research, 40% didn't speak. 20 to 30% of children with autism have some words at 12 to 18 months. And what will happen, a big trigger is you might hear that they lost them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that again in my next video about the signs and symptoms. Generally greatly varies from person to person. No two people with autism are alike. The rate of autism has been growing for the last 20 years. Comorbid conditions that are associated, meaning neither one is causing the other, but they have been running along together. Fragile X, allergies, asthma, epilepsy, bowel disease, gastrointestinal, digestive disorders, persistent viral infections, PANDAS, feeding disorders, anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, Tourette's syndrome, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So OCD, sensory integration dysfunction, seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling, tasting is not functioning the way everyone else is or the way it should be. Sleeping disorders, immune disorders, autoimmune disorders, and so the brain inflammation. So autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder, and it is considered very underfunded. So it is not untreatable. It is not hopeless. There is hope. So we understand that autism exists. It means that children's neurological pathways are not what their same age peers are. So in my next video, we're going to talk more about the signs and symptoms kind of associated with autism, and I will review again some of the resources. So remember to train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. You are the most important person in a child's life. You have a blessed and wonderful day. Keep helping children reach their potential.